All right. Well, we're about to start. So before we begin, I'd invite you to stand and join me in the pledge. And then who's doing the invocation? Mike Overton doing the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear God, once again, we thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve this fine community. We ask that you extend your help, your healing hand, to protect all of those who are affected by this new round. Please be with us now as we deliberate the best decisions possible for all concerned. In your name.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. All right. I'll call this regular meeting to order. This is the Tuesday, August 10th, regular city council meeting, 2021. And we'll start by asking the city clerk to call the roll. Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Williams. Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Kevin Flores.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fugere.
Here.
Ernest Case.
Here.
All right, thank you. I'll remind you we can hear each other without our mics, but and we've never had to turn them on and off before. So just as a reminder, if you're going to speak, please use the mic because that way we pick them up on the recording. Okay. And I don't think anybody's Zooming tonight, but it'll be a good habit to get into. We're at item 5 on the agenda, the portion of the agenda that we set aside for comments from our citizens. If we have any residents that would like to address the council, we ask that you go to the microphone, clearly state your name and address. Please keep your comments brief, understanding that the council won't take action on anything you bring forward tonight. Is there anyone here that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda? Okay. Thank you. Item 7, approval of minutes. You've had an opportunity to look over the minutes, council. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. That was the minutes, not the agenda. I'm sorry. Procedural motions, item 8. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Okay, we've got a motion for A and B. We have a second.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugere.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
All right, item 9, appointments and reappointments. Resolution approving an appointment to the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Springdale. And I have read the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
Is Mr. Vincent here?
Is Mr. Benson here? Don't see him. Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugere.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Watson.
Carry
We
7-0.
changed the order or something? Oh, Williams is not here. I always wait on Williams.
All right, item 10, Health, Sanitation, and Property Maintenance Committee. And speaking of Amelia Williams, she isn't here. She's the chair of that
She asked me to
committee.
Take that,
Okay, good deal.
and last, at the committee meeting, we had a presentation from Waste Management concerning changing from the green bags to stickers. Is there anyone that wants to address this?
We have anybody here from Waste Management?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the cost is per sticker.
This resolution was forwarded to the committee without recommendation because I don't think we had information that we were waiting for. That's correct.
Didn't he say, well,
They're 95 cents.
there wasn't a resolution at committee, but it was,
There was
the committee
information.
requested one be brought forward.
It's under terms and condition. It's 95 cents per sticker, no sales tax.
And you can buy
Minimum
anywhere
of
from
five.
a minimum of 5 up to however many you want to buy.
That price be reflected in our resolution? Or is it enough that it's in the amendment? No, that the amendment is incorporated in.
I move the resolution be adopted.
We gotta
Wait,
read
I'll
the
go ahead and read the title. I did not do that.
Okay.
A resolution approving a sixth amendment to a sanitation service contract with Sunray Services, Inc., now Waste Management of Arkansas, Inc., and authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment on behalf of the city.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, and a second to approve the resolution. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the room?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes, ma'am.
Al,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes. Carry 7-0.
All right, thank you. Item 11, Parks and Rec Committee by Chairman Mike Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. We got 2 items tonight, both resolutions. They were forwarded the recommendation for approval. First resolution, I'll read it. A resolution expressing the willingness of the city of Springdale to provide matching funds to accept federal aid from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, State and Local Assistance Program, and Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program for Luther George Park. It was forwarded with recommendation for approval, and I think Jill is here to answer any questions.
All right. May have any questions for Jill?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
What's it says, in the resolution, it says, estimated price has been established. What's the estimated price? Should that not be in our resolution? I think we should. You want to request and make an amendment? Do we have a motion?
We don't have a motion.
We don't have a motion.
You're making a
I'm
motion to
just,
amend the
yeah, I would
resolution.
like to see that in there, so we know what it is.
Where you gonna put it in there?
Where it says, therefore has been, then it says under whereas, the estimated price of $10 million has therefore been established.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Your motion's to,
Once it's read.
He read it.
Yeah.
so that your motion is,
To amend, so it's specific, we're saying $10 million.
okay.
Well, I'll move the resolution be adopted as amended by Mike.
Okay.
Will this have any effect
That
on
word,
Is he seconding your,
the
so
state
technically you're
or
seconding-
any of the funding we're trying to get if we have the 10 million? I know it's still a willingness, but
you could just-
I don't see why it would. I'm just,
I don't think so, Kevin. Ernest, did you hear the question?
What's the question?
would this have any sort of effect on when they take it to the state or wherever we're trying to get this, this additional funding from? If we put
It
in
wouldn't hurt our
the
grant.
10 million.
Now,
Not had an application.
the maximum,
that's just the estimated price anyway, really.
the maximum, I think the maximum grants 5 million matching.
How much are you requesting? How much are you requesting, Grant?
Mike, can you turn your microphone on?
I know, but how much are you specifically asking in the grant application? So you don't have a number? Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have a number then that you're asking? Well, it makes a big difference, because if you're asking, it's a 1-for-1 match, correct? Okay, so if you're asking for 5 million, and that's committing us to 2.5 million.
No,
No, it's 5 million.
no, it's
Five,
committed.
that's committing
committing
us
us
to
to
$5
five.
million.
Correct.
That's what I understand, but I'd like to see it, because we've committed $2 million from city funds the Luther George Park for this project. And I would like to see that delineated specifically so that we're not, in order for you're doing this application, saying you're applying for $5 million. And then in so doing, it says that we're committed to paying the local portion of the entire cost. And I know you've raised private funds, but I'd like to have something specific so that the taxpayers are limited to the $2 million we've already committed to. Not according to this. According to this, it says that we will
Match.
provide the local portion of the development cost in its entire project. And
With all due respect, the $3 million, the additional $3 million comes from private funders that gave that money. Project, and that's what we're dollars is what project. Those gift dollars can only be spent on this park.
okay, but that doesn't address my concern about the taxpayers being only $2 million.
That $2 million from the city,
Right.
and that $3 million gift makes it a $10 million.
Oh, I understand that totally, but I still don't see that we're committed just to our $2 million in the city funds. And just because there's nothing specific about this resolution, it just says we're gonna.
The problem, Mike, is that the 3 or 4 million, whatever you've raised are city funds now. Because they're in the city, they were given to, they flow through the city and they're as much city funds as the 2 million we're gonna get.
We committed, okay, we received the gift of the $3 million, but we committed to a maximum of $2 million for this park project, taxpayer funds.
By the acceptance letter.
That's all well and good. We're gonna spend that, but I'm concerned about limiting our $2 million exposure. Maybe I'm off of second base, but I don't see that we're
I'm not saying,
limiting our exposure.
So are you saying that if it weren't, didn't pull back on their $2 million?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that the city would be committed to a maximum of the $2 million that we've already pledged for this park. $2 million of whatever matching funds that we have. Period.
So would there be just a way to get that written in, just like we did the other one?
I don't know if there's a way or not, but
I think the mayor's point is where it says we'll provide the local portion, that we've already got that.
we've already got that local portion. It's city money now.
I
It just
think
wasn't
the-
taxpayer money.
I think that what he's getting hung up on is it says the development cost of the entire project.
The local portion.
Right.
Which is the
So.
And that's the match, the local portion.
So we're gonna commit, we're saying we're committing 5 million and for a $5 million grant. We've got 5 to 6 in the bank right now.
If the project goes to 12 million, we're committing 6 million, basically. Well, we're not, we're just committing the 5 million.
We're just committing
on this.
5 because
But
it's a
then
maximum grant.
if we receive this 5 million and so it's a total of $10 million, and then we come up after all design, we're coming up, and it's cost 12 or 13 million. I don't want to see our general fund hit for another $2 or $3 million to make up the difference. That's what my concern is.
Okay. Well, I don't either, but I'll just go ahead and say that if that were to happen, and I don't think it would, the council can decide whether or not to do that, or the project could be scaled back.
All that we're committing to in this rest, and my mic's not working, I don't think.
Push that,
I have been pushing it.
Yeah, his mic's isn't working either.
But
okay,
anyway, I think all we're committing to is to match whatever the grant is.
I agree. I agree.
And if the project goes up for $10 million, we're not asking for more than $5 million, I don't think.
you can.
So that was just, I don't think this would affect it, doesn't seem like.
Were you still okay with your motion as far as adding the estimate?
Well, yeah, no, no, I kind of got you screwed up.
Not really, did we had a motion in a second for the, to
Add the 10
pass the
million.
resolution, adding up the estimated price of 10 million.
And then everybody else is comfortable with it.
So it's not gonna make any difference where we say 2 million of it is from general fund, 3 million of it is,
I don't think they're gonna care.
Then the application say you have to show a specific amount you're applying for?
Yes, and we are applying for the max amount.
Okay, that's what I was asking up front. So we're asking for 5 million.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's all I was.
Okay.
my question
Second.
was about. Instead of the variables, we're asking for the max, which is fine.
Jeff made the motion
Jeff made-
with the amendment that Mike asked to have added.
Yeah,
Right, Ernest? Okay.
Second.
I second it.
All right, good. Get all that?
The 10 million amendment.
We just added the estimated cost of the park is $10 million. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, Denise.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Hal,
yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
All right, the second resolution we have, it was recommended for approval as well. I'll read it. It's a resolution expressing the willingness of the city of Springdale to provide matching funds and accept funds, the outdoor recreation matching grant from the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage and Tourism, city of, for the Springdale Greenway Market Project. Jill's here as well.
And you're asking for a maximum of 250, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So then it would cost us, if we get the 250, it costs the taxpayers 125.
No, cost us $252.
No, it's 50%.
Isn't that right? Yeah, it's a maximum, but we may not get the whole 250. But we got to match 1 for 1, whatever it is, up to 250. And we discussed, we don't have to decide tonight, so we discussed last at the committee that could possibly come out of the park set aside.
Well,
But,
I don't, when are we gonna make that decision? I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
well, you can put it in the resolution if you want to.
I don't know that it needs to. If we'll just all agree.
Well,
that-
yeah,
Is there any reason not to take from the park set aside?
but,
Depends on how
No.
much we spend out of the 2 million. But which one do you think will come to fruition first? This one or the first?
well, yeah, do we know who we're here about first?
We know that.
Okay.
So we should know that.
Colby, by November, the park set aside is gonna be somewhere around 600 grand. Is that right? Something like that. Do you remember? There'll be another 100,000 added. We do 200,000 a year.
If one of you guys could
Oh.
turn your microphones off,
Jill, what's the deadline for
they can turn the
application
one
on
if
this?
they're on.
Can y'all hear me? Oh, there it
Now
is.
we can.
Okay.
So it's the end of this month. For the application. Okay.
Yes, end of August for both.
Yeah, when you're talking, you can. It's just, there can only be 8 on at a time.
Oh. I got mine on.
I'll take mine off.
Let's just turn off everybody's but mine.
This meeting would go a lot faster if we just turned mine off.
Did we get a motion? Okay.
No.
There's
No
no
motion.
motion on the table. Any more questions?
I move the resolution be adopted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Harriman, Fidgeroos,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson. Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Item 12 is Police and Fire Committee, Chairman Brian Powell. Brian,
Thank you,
Mayor,
Mayor.
did you want me to do that presentation tonight?
what presentation? Oh, it's in our,
It's in your packets?
it's the same one that's on our iPads.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Mayor. We met last Monday. With the Fire and Police Committee. We have one resolution we're bringing forward that was recommended for approval. A resolution authorizing the execution of a purchase contract for a fire department custom pumper. This is in our budget, and Chief Irwin's here if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for the chief?
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, motion and second to approve the resolution.
I'm
Any
sorry.
other
I was
comments
on
or
the wrong one.
questions? Anything to add, chief, before we vote?
No, sir.
Okay. Denise?
Fidgeroos,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
There's 7-0.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, chief. Item 13, Ordinance Committee, Chairman Mike Overton. Mike?
Mayor, we had one item on the ordinance committee come before the council. And it's an ordinance amending Article 2, Section 10 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency for other purposes. And what this does is, per passage of Act 930 of the state legislature, this allows individuals to petition to the city council any denial by the planning commission of a variance request. And I move the ordinance be adopted.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Other comments or questions, more discussion?
Mayor, I just want to reiterate my only concern with this is the body that's writing these ordinances is the same body that's going to review these appeals. And that's my only hesitancy with this. Yeah, my only comment.
Well, the whole concept is to allow any citizen to be able to appeal a decision concerning their personal their property to an elected body before having to go to the expense of hiring an attorney to go to civil court.
Around how many are there of these typically? Do we have any clue whatsoever?
We have no idea how many have been denied and decided not to pursue it legally.
Go ahead, Patsy.
I can tell you, we've only had a couple that went to court. And we don't turn down a lot of them. I mean, if the standards that we have in the ordinance is a minimum standards, and there is a hardship that is not created by the individual themselves, and there's some extenuating circumstances, most of the time the planning commission approves those. We have had very few. The question was brought up at planning commission meeting the other night about whether if an aggrieved party has the right to appeal that decision, say we grant a variance, and we had the other night, a couple of months ago, we had two property owners that were concerned about each other, and they applied for a 12-foot fence.
One property.
One property applied for the 12-foot fence. The adjacent property owner didn't like the 12-foot fence. Okay, the planning commission did not approve the variance, so they didn't get the 12-foot fence. He has the right to appeal. Had it gone the other direction and the planning commission had granted the variance and allowed the 12-foot fence to go in, then that aggrieved party who didn't like it could have come to you guys to settle that conflict between the two of them. The way it's set up now, it goes to court and they review it. And I don't know what there's a legal term for it. They go back and look at the entire de novo review from the very beginning. It's set up, and it has been for years, to allow there not to be political reasons to make those decisions, that it really is determined based on a hardship, which the planning commission looks at. I guess my question is that what we've got broken? I don't think so, but if you guys want to get in the middle of some of those discussions, more power to you.
Well, the whole idea is, so if someone has standing, then they would have a right to appeal, but they would have to show that they have standing to have reason to appeal an approval of a variance.
If they go to court, yes, it does.
Well, even.
I don't know that coming before this body, and I'm not the attorney, what kind of standing do they have to prove to you guys to file that appeal? All it says is they have to say that the planning commission's decision was an error, and you guys have to hear the appeal.
That's the person that
Right.
was turned down, the petitioner.
Right. No,
So there's no-
any aggrieved party is the way it's
No,
written.
it does. It says that any person or taxpayer who, of the city aggrieved by a decision, you're right. If they
Right.
could
So
prove
it
that-
doesn't matter. You guys have to determine, I mean, it appears to me you have to hear it. Whereas if it goes to court, it has to be determined they have standing before you get into that. We had one several years ago that was discussion about a property owner that was clear across town that thought they were aggrieved by the decision of the planning commission, and it took the court to determine that they didn't have standing.
Right,
The-
that case actually went to the Arkansas Supreme
Right.
Court. And
Yeah.
it does say any aggrieved party, because the way the statute reads, it says decisions of the Board of Adjustment, not
Right.
just denial. So any
Right.
decision could be appealed to the governing body.
And that's always been that
Your
leeway
decision.
in there that you don't have to be the body that hears everything. They have to determine through the court system whether they have standing or not. But, that's your choice as to what you want to hear.
I still think any property owner should have the right, prior to going to the expense of hiring an attorney, to appeal a decision concerning his property.
I personally feel that we can handle this at the ordinance level. And if there's a problem with the ordinance, then we need to look at the ordinance and not the issue. Because we put those ordinance in place, the planning commission are the ones that uphold those ordinances. And if there's a problem with the ordinance, then we need to look at that.
That's why the
That's-
state passed the Act 930 in April of this year, because, so they want to allow this to happen, but. if you-
I can tell you the way the bill was originally written, it would have changed it to where it would have come to the governing body automatically. It was scaled back to give cities the individual decision whether or not to amend their ordinance to allow this, because the statute, the way it was before, did not allow. Jim Reed, as you know, beat that drum for years that he wanted that statute changed. And here he's not on the council anymore, and then it gets changed.
My only concern on this really is, it's been brought up tonight, is that if the planning commission approves a variance and somebody across town or somebody who drives that road every day says, well, this has negatively impacted me, I've been aggrieved. And yeah, they might get thrown out in court, but it sounds like we would have to hear it.
And we could,
I would make if that was to happen, I would make the argument that the person was not an aggrieved party as stated in the ordinance.
Okay.
And then they could appeal that decision to court if they
But
wanted.
that would
to.
be for us to decide, wouldn't it? Whether they have standing, I mean, outside of
They
the
can
court.
appeal to council whether,
They could appeal to council. I mean, I could give you my opinion whether or not I believe that they were aggrieved party. or not.
Yeah, and I-
Correct. You all would have to be the
Right.
final arbiter of
we
that.
still.
but the
would still be
council,
here.
council could decide to take action or not take action on
Yeah.
that. period.
And your comment as far as the taxpayer having access to this, I completely agree with. I don't think there's anything off with that. It's just the potential to misuse this.
How's that taking up our time?
No. I mean, the potential to misuse this amendment to allow, like the mayor was saying, some aggrieved party that may not be an aggrieved party in a court.
And that's where we could make the decision, since we're elected to make decisions, to decide, if their argument had merit or not, to pass it or ignore
So I'm a little confused, Mike.
it. Okay?
Have we not, somebody, my turn.
Here, I'll turn.
Have we not looked at variances before, or how's this different?
No, the only one we ever looked at was when Lamar Pettis brought one, and he had gone to
That's the
circuit court.
only one?
That's the only one that's ever come before the council.
Because I remember Bobby Stout used to always,
No variance
he
ever
used
came
to always
before.
say he was against variances until one came before us, and then he'd vote for it.
This only pertains to board zoning adjustment.
So there are other variances
Yes,
that
like
this,
from subdivision ordinance, for
Yeah.
example, you hear those.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
But
But-
this is just Board of Zoning Adjustment, because the way the statute was written, it said specifically that decisions of the Board of Zoning Adjustment were only appealable to
So other variances come to us already.
Yeah,
So really, what's the difference, I guess, is
Well,
what I'm
that's
asking
true.
there.
yeah.
Well, and the
Gotcha.
zoning ordinance, could be amended to take some of those things out that come to you guys. But Randall, I want to go back to your point. If there's a problem with the way the ordinance is written or the requirements is there, we need to address that rather than trying to address the process that we use. We set minimum standards. If you want to hear all the variances for paved parking, take that out of the zoning ordinance and do it there. Do you want to get into the discussion about setbacks and fence heights and, some of that stuff that it's pretty cut and dry because we have the minimum standards, but
Well, like,
that's your call.
like Jeff said, we hear variances, anyway, when you approve a variance, it comes before us, period.
If it is in the zoning ordinance,
Yeah.
you don't hear them. The Board of Adjustments handles all the zoning and none of that comes to you. Everything else.
Give us an example, Patsy, of a variance that you're now, as opposed to one in the zoning ordinance.
Well, you hear waivers and variances for subdivision regulations all the time.
Okay.
Whether or not they do street improvements, whether they do sidewalks, those are listed as waivers rather than variances, but that comes out of the subdivision
But that-
regulations itself. Commercial design standards, whether or not they have to do a certain percentage of material other than metal, multifamily design standards, the open space requirements. You would hear all of those because those are all set up in the subdivision regulations, not the zoning ordinance. We haven't had in quite some time any of those variances that have been denied because 9 times out of 10, the planning commission works with that developer to come up with a way to allow them to do that by, if it's landscaping, do a little bit more landscaping in this area instead of foundation landscaping. We hear that a lot. Some businesses, and I can give you an example like Casey's, they don't want the foundation, the landscaping right up next to their building. They want it to be paved all the way up to the building. So the planning commission works with that developer that they put that same amount of landscaping at another location, so there's not a variance needed.
So are there a bunch of variances that you turned down then? That you said like that go before the Board of Adjustment? Are there a bunch that you turned down?
We get into lot sizes, minimum lot width.
I know, but are there a number that,
Well, there's quite a few. Setbacks ones are the ones we hear the most. Front setbacks, whether it's 25, 30, those distances,
And
we hear those.
those come before us when we have variance on lot sizes and on setbacks?
No, lot
And the setback-
sizes and setbacks are a zoning requirement, and those are heard before planning commission before you see the subdivision. Because they have to be addressed by the planning commission, and those variances do not come to you guys.
I can tell you about the situation that you mentioned, Mr. Pettis. There was one that was filed, they did file an appeal of a variance denial to circuit court. And he came, in the context of that case, he had a settlement proposal, so I needed authority from this body in order to settle it. So in a way, you kind of heard it in a way, in a roundabout way, but it's very unusual for those ever to end up in court.
Right, it came back to you because it was a settlement, not because you heard the variance to start with. And his variance was whether or not they could have direct direct parking off the street and the amount of parking that they had to pay and the landscaping requirements. Those were the ones that he had.
Well, I'm kind of like, some of y'all don't remember Bobby Stout, but I'm kind of like Bobby Stout. I don't know that I ever think we ought to ever grant a variance in some of those, like setbacks and
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll hear.
and lot
you'll hear,
sizes and.
Chief, your fire marshal will get up at every council meeting or at every planning commission meeting when there's a request for a rear setback.
That's
variance,
correct.
and
Any
they'll
of the
always-
setbacks will always go against.
they'll always-
Well, I feel like when people are looking on a large scale development for a variance, they're doing a PUD and going that way. Is that,
That can happen sometimes because in a PUD, we set a whole different standard for it and we don't have to do variances. But once that PUD is approved, there are no variances or waivers. You better get it right the first time, or you got to come back and change the PUD document. We've had a couple of times where they wanted to come and do a variance and they had to do amendment and they figured out how to make it work without having to do that variance too. Yeah. Never can you create a variance that allows a use that's not otherwise allowed. That doesn't change with this. If it's not allowed, you can't do a variance to allow something else to go in there. That one's state law. It's been that way. That didn't change this one either, so.
My, my only fear, if you were to do this, is that I'm afraid you might have more people challenge the granting of a variance than you will the denial of a variance, if that makes any sense. Because they kind of feel like they get a free bite at the apple with the city council.
Well, right, and that just opens up the whole standing issue again of, do they have, I want to put this delicately, but an interest or harm in the variance being granted.
Well, it says on here that to appeal this, they have to provide in writing, specifically in writing to the city clerk, while the petitioner considers the Board of Zoning Adjustments finding and decision in error. So what is specifically in writing?
Well, this is the same exact actually, this is the same exact language that's in the zoning ordinance now for a zoning. Someone wants to appeal the denial of a zoning, rezoning of a property to city council. It's the same procedure.
So it goes through,
Yeah, it is.
so it goes to the city clerk.
In the mayor's office. Pass it on.
Well, so,
I don't think he
so
does.
does this say that, you know, there's just questions out here. So she gets it. Or that office gets it. Are they to decide if it's specific enough? Or does she get a request and it automatically comes?
Right now, if she gets it a request, it automatically comes to you guys. And the specific insight, well, not all the planning commission members were there, so not everyone heard it. There was one person made a comment that we feel was an error. I mean, what would be specific enough? That's something we haven't ever spent a lot of time discussing. We just let it come to you guys and let you decide what to do with it. And that's the same language for zoning and conditional uses. Same language. The other addition in this ordinance that says if you get turned down for a variance, you can apply for another one in a year. The current zoning ordinance does not say that. You can apply for a variance and it gets turned down. You can keep coming back and ask for a review again and review again. Very seldom does that happen without coming back and making some alterations. And sometimes we get, a little tweak of something that, well, if they needed a 15-foot, the first time they asked for a 15-foot rear setback variance, and actually they only need 10 or 11, and that's a little bit better situation. So sometimes we'll get them to come back and address that and bring it down to what they're really asking for instead of just a blanket one. It's a nice round number. They've actually went out there and measured and they know what they can make work and what they can't make work. That's happened a few times too.
Any other comments before we vote? We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Okay.
If one more real quick. So if this does get passed, can it be revoked? Can you go back the other way if we're having a problem with it?
We can always
or-
amend any ordinance. That's correct.
Yeah, you can always undo something
Any
done.
ordinance. You'd have to go back and have another hearing at planning commission first,
Right.
but yes, there is a
Yeah, something
mechanism to do that.
Mike came to planning commission because there was a requirement of a public hearing
Correct.
for this. Yeah. So. All right. Denise?
Al,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
No,
Harriman,
No,
Fugierus,
Yes.
Carries 5-2. It also has an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted. Well, we don't have to. It's not an emergency.
Remove the emergency clause.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we're done?
Yes,
Okay.
carries 5-2.
All right. Thank you. Item 14, Planning Commission Report and Recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development.
I told you guys last time that we're putting in a new policy to be able to make Make sure the legal descriptions are good before we bring them to you. Well, it worked on the other computer, but it doesn't work on this one. So anyway. So this rezoning request was heard a month ago, but we had some problems with the legal description, so we got it corrected. And so the legal description you have on the piece of property is the correct one. They were identifying a location as a highway department marker rather than a permanent marker. Had to get all that fixed, but the request is to rezone 0.41 acres from commercial district C2 to thoroughfare commercial district C5 at 105 East Robinson. The planning commission recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, on the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from general commercial district C2 to thoroughfare commercial district C5 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Anyone?
Watson. Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell. Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes,
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell. Watson.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 7-0.
In connection with this same is a conditional use for a use unit 25, which limited manufacturing as a conditional use in the C5. The planning commission reviewed this request for a use unit 25 and recommends approval. The vote was 6 yes, no, or 0 no votes. And it is subject to receiving the proper permits from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency before this conditional use would move forward. Title of the resolution reads a resolution approving a conditional use for High Crest Holdings LLC at 105 East Robinson Avenue as set forth in ordinance number 4030 with that condition that I just identified.
What kind of business?
It's a gun shop that will do some manufacturing, some gunsmithing, that kind of stuff at that location.
Gunsmithing or manufacturing?
Well, there's a very thin line between what is manufacturing and what is gunsmithing. They make handles, they make barrels, they make those kind of things, which could be considered to be limited to manufacturing. This way, there's not any question that using that use unit 25 covers everything they want to do at that location. Yeah.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Hey, Denise?
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell. Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
All right, thank you. And item 15, I'll turn over to our city attorney.
Thank you. This is an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to file a cleanup lien for the removal of overgrown brush and debris on property located within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. And this is at 1205 Crutcher.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments? Anyone in the room need to speak to this item? All right, Denise?
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell. Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell. Watson. Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0. And I just want to give you a heads up on next week's committee agenda. You're going to have a raise and removal, proposed raise and removal ordinance on this same property.
All right, item 16, any comments from the council? City attorney?
No, sir.
Nothing from me. We got a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We're adjourned. Thank you.